everybody, this is Annie Berryhill, and welcome to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy Show. I'm super happy that you've decided to join me today for this particular topic, and surprise, surprise, it's just going to be me. I'm not having any guests today, and I want to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, so stay tuned. All right, so in this show, we are going to be talking about the 7 steps you can take to create a life you love on purpose. And this particular talk, training, information, whatever you want to call it, is derived from the book that I published, that I self-published in 2015 called Breakthrough to Freedom, The Ultimate Guide to Creating a Life You Love on Purpose. And a little bit of a backstory about the book. It was a project that took me about 3 years to write. And it took me 3 years because I don't know that I was necessarily all that serious. I had received a lot of ideas, and I say received because sometimes that just happens. They arrive like a package on the doorstep. And so I had been collecting these ideas. I had been putting them in a journal, saving them, and slowly was evolving into creating this into a book. That was always my original intention. And so I had been really just dilly-dallying around it. And I will say I know a huge reason that I didn't work on it more frequently and with more intentionality, I guess the word would be, was because there was always that little part of me that was suffering from the imposter syndrome of who am I to write a book? Who's ever going to read my book? I always had that little voice that was whispering in the back of my head saying, shh, you're not an author. You're not a writer. You didn't get a degree in journalism or English for anything like that. So there was a lot of self-doubt that goes through the creation process. And I think that's true from what I have found just talking to creative people, whether, you want to sell your art or you have a book or you dance or you sing. I grew up in music. If you've listened to any of the other shows, you know that I talk a little bit about that. But I grew up in vocal music, and it really is one of those things that even to this day, I can get lost in just singing along with, songs on the radio or having the house all to myself and just cranking up some Alicia Keys from the good old days, some of the original stuff that she did when I was so into her. I loved it. And I still know every word. But I think the thing is with that is it does make me really nervous to think about, just going out there and singing by myself, even though I think now I could probably do it pretty well and not really care if I was the best ever on the planet. I'm certainly not going to be going on The Voice anytime soon. But the point of that is that creativity really is something that is super close to, I think, our identities and our souls. It's really birthed in the deepest places in us. And even though some of it requires thinking and using your hands and kind of a physicality mentality, the impetus for it, the beginning of it, usually comes from some creative place deep down. And because it's deep down, I really believe that's why people hesitate to put it out in the world, because it is so close to their being that risking putting it out there and having someone stomp all over it or saying it wasn't good or criticizing it in any way was really almost like criticizing the inside of their spirit of who they are. And so it's really tricky and it's really scary. And I definitely struggled with some of that imposter syndrome before I published my book. And the book itself really got done because I realized that I was turning 50 on October 22nd, 2015. And I figured it out about 7 months before my birthday. And I had a contact that was a publisher. She helped publishers, people who wanted to self-publish, get the process done. And I called her and we had a lot of conversations and I was like, can we get this done by this date? Get it out, get it up on Amazon, get it printed, everything by that date. And she assured me that we could, and we did. And really that for me was the line in the sand. I had to put down some money to have it edited and to have it laid out and to have the cover done. I had to invest some money. And once I did that, usually for me, that's a pretty big motivator to finish, but also a deadline. I had a hard and fast deadline for when I had to be done with everything that I was doing in order for her to finish on time to make that date. And for someone who has been creative their whole life, it was a pretty big deal, pretty big milestone to be able to launch that on my 50th birthday. So that's a little bit about the history of the book, but also an encouragement to you that if you are someone who has a book inside of you, or 2 or 10 or 20 or 1,000 books, I literally have about 9 other books outlined. I just cannot set aside the time to finish them, which is a lousy excuse, and don't use it. I'm not giving you permission to use that excuse. It's so common, but there's a reason that only 2% of the people who ever say they want to write a book actually write a book. And that's because it's hard and it's scary and it really puts you out there, whether it's a nonfiction book or it's even a fiction book, because your creativity is on the line. You know, somebody's going to question your storyline or your ability to write and create characters. So I would just say to you, if there's a creative thing that you want to do, enjoy it. Enjoy it first. Really have it be fun. And if you want to turn it into something more, if you want to turn it into a business or make a profit on selling it, then do that too. But just know that you're okay, that it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of your craft, of your creativity, of your design. What matters is how you feel when you create it and when you put it out into the world. So I would just encourage you to do that. So that's your little butt kicking for today. Now, on to the lesson, 7 steps to creating a life you love on purpose. So there's 7 steps, and I thought I'd be really creative to create this little format using the word freedom. And just so you know, in the show notes at boldbravesassshow.com, you'll be able to look up this episode and download this worksheet. So if you want to pause this recording and go grab that right now and print it up, go do it. If you want to go back to it, finish listening to this and then go download it, that's great. If you don't want to download it at all, take notes. If you don't want to take notes, just kick back and listen. I'm okay with any of that because I think you'll learn something, you'll hear something that you needed to hear. So again, being the clever girl I am, I wrote out the word freedom, and each one of those letters represents a step. Now, before I go into those steps, realize that this is a process that you can use at different times of your life. And really, it's kind of a way to shake things up and to get thinking out of maybe the think tracks that you're in, because we tend to look at things the same old way and we sometimes can't see outside for a better solution. So this 7-step process is really an opportunity for you to go make some changes, little changes to get to some goals, or to really wholesale change things in order to break free. Literally, like Don't Break the Ice, that game where you have to break through all the little plastic ice cubes and be the last person to do that. Like, I want you to slam it with a hammer. Maybe that's what you need in your life right now. This process can work for big things and for little things. So I would just want to encourage you to use it for either. Play around with it. It's not too in depth, but it may shake things up in your brain and make you think. I know for me that when I have worked with business coaches, writing coaches, things like that, I can have one conversation with a person that I just met, and because of their different perspective, I'm actually able to get some fresh ideas and some fresh looks at what I'm doing and shake it up a little bit. This is what I want to do for you today on this show, and so here we go. So the very first step to the freedom formula, the breakthrough to freedom, very first step is the letter F, which stands for form your dream. You got to take some time to really get clear on what your dream is. And when we're not clear, we can't go. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't like walking through fog. I don't like swimming with my eyes closed. I don't like walking in the dark. I prefer to have even a little bit of light. And the more light we can have, the more clarity we can have, the more confidently we can take the next steps. And so when I talk about forming your dream, maybe you've never even taken the time to really figure out what that dream looks like. In the book, I talk about the process of journaling. And so you're going to take a date in the future. You set a date, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, make it reasonable. You know, you got to be able to see out that far to some degree. And write about your day from the time you get up and throughout your day. What are you doing? Write down everything you're experiencing through all your senses. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What can you touch with your hands? What are you smelling? How does the air feel? What do you see when you look out your windows? What kind of setting are you in? It's really this whole idea of let's just feel and design with our brains. Both of those things are part of the dream building process. Because again, it's like a journey. If you don't know where you're going, you won't ever get there because you don't know where there is. And so this can be something that you want to have in 6 months. And this could be even a goal of how your body is. You know, I come from that nutrition and fitness background, and it's still a big part of what I do and who I talk to and what I talk about. I feel like that's a foundational thing for you to be able to be your best self. And so maybe it's being able to get up out of bed in the morning without being groggy, maybe even without an alarm clock, and being motivated right away to go on that walk or to get a little exercise in, maybe in the garage or with a P90X DVD or online or something. Maybe it's just that is the dream that you want. You want to have more energy. You want to be more vibrant in your everyday life so you can do more, and you want to feel better in your body. So take some time to define what that is. So it's a target. It just becomes a target. So form your dream is the first step. Now, the second step is just as important, but it's in a really different way, because R is about revealing and resolving your hurdles. So just like any trip, there's going to be traffic. There's going to be places where maybe you have to take a detour. There's going to be things in the road that might hinder your progress. And that's what I mean by your hurdle. So you kind of have to look into the time from now until you actually get to your dream. And the in-between time, what are the things that are going to come up? What things have come up in the past that have stopped you from getting to your dream or / your goal, if you want to put it as a goal? So things that people typically struggle with, and I see this a ton in nutrition coaching specifically, is really a lot of head trash goes on inside when people start talking about losing weight. And for some reason, again, imposter syndrome, maybe they've never been the lean and strong and fit person that they're dreaming of being. And so it feels impossible because it's never happened. And that's a mindset. That's a lack of belief, right? And it is hard to believe in something you've never seen or touched or experienced, but that doesn't mean it's not possible, and it doesn't mean it's not real. So those are the things that you have to work on within your own brain, in your own thoughts, and recognize those, right? So you got to reveal them. You got to do some checklists. And in the book, I actually have some worksheets that go along with that go into this in a much deeper way. So really the question here is, what has been holding you back in the past? Especially if the dream or goal that you wrote about in the first step is something that you've been trying to get for a while. Maybe you've stopped and started. Maybe you've gotten partway there and then fell backwards. Those are the kind of things that we look at, and we see that pattern of stop and starting, or little progress, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. All of those things are good things to notice. You really have to be aware of these little secret things that you didn't really count as anything, and you didn't figure they were part of the process. You thought, oh, I cheated on my meals too much, or I didn't eat the right amount of food, or we didn't have my macros right, or my calories are wrong, or I didn't exercise enough. So many times when people are going for those health and fitness and, feel better goals and their, feel better in their body goals, it has a lot to do with their thinking and their beliefs about their ability and their deserving to get there. I mean, if you come from a family whose genetics tend to make your body type be a little heavier, and you could potentially be the first person ever to be in a slim body, and you're making progress towards there, I guarantee you've heard stuff from them, because they don't want you to change. They don't want you to have what they don't have, but they want. So it's super important for you to really understand what's going through your head, what has stopped you before. And then obviously the physical things. Is time going to be an issue? Is money going to be an issue? Are other responsibilities going to be an issue for pursuing whatever dream it is that you want? The second part of that R is to resolve them. Once you know what they are, you're very empowered to take steps and create places where you can get out. You can resolve them. You can make them not be a problem. If time is a problem, then don't plan to have an hour-long workout that you have to travel a half an hour to and from, right? You will need to have videos on demand and be able to do it in your house before you leave for work. Take a shower at home, kiss your kids goodbye, have some breakfast with your family real quick. Bam, out the door, right? If sitting down to write that book is because you don't have enough time, then you are going to have to put that on your schedule. You're going to have to give up some Netflix. You're going to have to give up some other things if that truly, truly, truly is your dream. And in that forming process, you're going to discover what really matters to you, because the more it matters to you, the more you're going to feel about it. And so that's easy also to discern between what dreams are worth pursuing right now and what aren't. So step 2 is R, reveal and resolve your hurdles. Anything that gets in your way or that's been holding you back or you foresee maybe holding you back. Those are all things that you got to really become mindful of. So you can take some time to write those down. The worksheet that I have up on the show notes is pretty small to write in. It's just a little, couple lines that you can write on, but it gives you the format. So you can always take another piece of paper, but there might be more than 1 or 2 or 5 or quite a few hurdles. But I think what's cool about really looking that beast, quote unquote, in the face is sometimes we see that when we really look at things and identify them, they're not as big and scary or insurmountable as we originally made them out to be. So taking the time to look at what's getting in your way and figuring out game plans for getting them out of your way so that you can move forward on the path to your dream is super important. The third step is the first letter E. And this one stands for embrace your design. The idea of this is that each one of us is born with a unique set of strengths, of talents, of passions. And when we reveal them, it boosts our confidence and it also helps our clarity in understanding what we were uniquely designed to be and to do. So this is really fun. One of my most favorite parts of the book, and really one of my most favorite things to do in the world with people and for myself, this whole journey of self-discovery. Some of the things that you can use to discover those things are, say, a DISC assessment, D-I-S-C. That's going to talk to you and tell you a little bit about your personality/motivation style and your blend. Usually you're 1 or 2 of those. There's also another one, 16personalities.com, and that one will give you your Myers-Briggs identity, quote unquote. I use that with quote marks, but it'll give you your personality type as defined by the Myers-Briggs. That one's really cool too because it's visual and they give everybody a name for what your personality type is. And then it'll actually tell you famous people who have that same personality type and what you're really suited to do. What I find is really interesting for me is it kind of gives me this permission on one hand to say like, yeah, I thought I had that and that, okay, that test told me, like confirmed that I am this way. But then also giving me some ideas where maybe if I was wandering or saying, what should I do? What should I do? Or is this really true? Do I really have these gifts? It kind of confirms it and it gives you a little bit more confidence to say, hey, yeah, I was on the right track with that. And there's always little variables and differences. The DISC is not as descriptive as probably the Myers-Briggs, but they're similar in some ways because they talk about personality type. The other one that I absolutely adore, and I think it's because I have never had 5 words describe me so completely and perfectly as the 5 words that I discovered when I took the StrengthsFinder test. So you can just Google all those. I'll put them in the show notes as well. The StrengthsFinder was really interesting because it's not about sort of your action reaction or your countenance or kind of the way how you do anything is how you do everything. It's really about what your strong traits are. And in StrengthsFinder, it's built on 34 different strengths that they've identified. And then when you take the test, it's like maybe $20. I don't even know. It's online. You get your top 5. You can also pay to take the more extensive one and see how all 34 line up for you. I've done a lot of work on this myself, so I kind of knew, but it was really, really interesting to understand that the way that my brain always worked, really seemed to work as I became more and more aware of that, was really confirmed in these 5 words. And I don't want to tell you mine, but someday maybe we can have a conversation. Maybe we can do a Facebook Live about StrengthsFinder. That would be super fun because I'd love to know yours and I'd love to know how closely it resembles what you really feel like it does for you. Now, and that's my personal experience. Some people hate assessments because they feel it boxes them in, but I think sometimes people say that because they don't want to face the truth, that there's a trait that they didn't really want to be. Either it's because somebody else in their life was like that and they didn't like that person, or it's something that they don't want to develop or they kind of want to ignore. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. And if you're one of those people that doesn't like assessments, there's no reason you have to do any. But I do like the idea of embracing who you are. And sometimes it's fun to just take an inventory. Sometimes I take an inventory of my household tools, meaning like my kitchen tools. And I sit back and I think, man, I got a lot of cool stuff in here. I have a lot of ability to do different things. I can make food this way, or I can use that tool. And then you get re-sparked to plug into those tools and use them in new ways. And it's the same with understanding your design. So embracing your design is something that I think is really fun to do, and not everybody does. Maybe they do it a little bit here and there, but actually taking some time to do that. And again, all of these steps are expounded upon much, much more in the book. And it sounds like a shameless plug, and I guess in a way it is. You can get the book or not. It's on Amazon. You can order it through me. It doesn't matter. But there's, tons of resources I'll put in the show notes. And you can figure it out. But it really is, I think, an awesome thing to be able to just recognize that even if you haven't accomplished the things that you wanted to do, or you've fallen short, or you failed, that you are here on this planet. You have talents, you have things you care about, you have innate ways of doing things that benefit you and probably benefit other people. And also to remember that everybody does have their unique design, and being able to respect other people's design. I know for me in the DISC assessment, my two strongest, and they're like neck and neck, they're literally like 51% and 49%. My blend is to be the dominant driver type and the inspirational sort of life of the party. And my mantra in my head, strangely enough, has always been work hard so you can play later. Meaning get all that work done and, do all your cleaning on Saturday morning so you can spend the rest of the weekend off. That's my attitude. It's always about working towards the fun. But my biggest challenge with people is someone who is in the C category. Now, this is the person that would typically be the super analytical type. They're introverted, they love data, and they really like to hunker down around being very conscientious about details. I could not be less of a detail person. And so I know for me that when I meet someone like that, I have to kind of shift my mentality and my expectations, because they usually don't talk as fast as I do, or maybe think as fast as I do. And that's not a bad thing. I need to actually slow down so we can find a meeting place. And I don't have expectations. Once I understand that, I don't have expectations that they're going to act like me or react or respond like me. And we can come to like a happy medium, at least on my efforts, because I never expect anybody to do that for me. I just have a super hyper awareness of people's personality types, and I pick up on them really, really fast. And so it's kind of a little bit of a game for me to try to guess. But that's just me. That's part of my design. I pay attention to people. The next E is to evaluate your values, your experience, and your skills. And this is kind of the piggyback to embrace your design. And know that design is sort of the things that you would more or less have been born with. Your abilities to do things with no effort. Maybe you can sing or play music or do art, or maybe you're really, really good at numbers. Those are things that just kind of came with your genetics. And the values and your experience and your skills are things that are developed, things that you were influenced to develop. So your values were probably instilled in you through your environment growing up. And as you went out into the world with those values, maybe they shifted slightly. There are things like integrity. There are things like being social, people are important to you. So like what you value, those things that sort of are the undercurrent about how you go about doing your business. If people always say you're super reliable, that's a value. And most of us don't really actually know what our top maybe 5 values are, or our very, very tip-top value. I think that's really, really hard to do as a tip-top value, because we do have usually 5, maybe 10, the lesser 5, the top 5, the lesser 5. And they're all kind of at work, because we make our decisions through our values. If we value family, then we're not going to work those extra hours. And we're not even going to really hesitate when we say no, because we've already decided that's our value. Our value is family. Our value is individuality. Our value is creativity. And those things drive how we make decisions and what we end up doing. So knowing what your values are is a worthwhile exercise to discover. And again, there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. I have one in the book. But the other part is experience. The things that you've learned how to do. To make an expert, they say 10,000 hours to make an expert. And you don't have to be an expert to have experience. I've done a lot of different things in my life. A lot. I kind of look at life like Soup Plantation, that it's a buffet and there's a lot of different food to try. And I'm really excited to try the things that appeal to me. And most of those things are wrapped around my design and my passions and the things that I ultimately want to achieve and leave a legacy for. But, values and skills, they kind of come later. They're not as wired, but they're very values especially are very deeply woven into who we are. And experience is maybe like another layer up, where we tend to gravitate towards things that we're good at and things we've learned how to do and know how to do well. And then we have skills, which is maybe even a higher level up, things that we know how to do. And all of us have so many skills that we might not even consider are a skill. The ability to be on the computer and to type and to create a Word document or a spreadsheet. We don't think sometimes that those things are actual skills because they're so common, but really they're not. If you think about the number of people in the world, or even go interview a few of your friends and ask them, hey, do you know how to make a spreadsheet? They're like, no, hey, I don't ever do that, because they're, the marketing person who's making the graphics for the campaign. They're not worried about the metrics. That's not their job. That's not what they care about. And people gravitate as much as they can to something that they're good at and they can develop their skill in. So skills are great. They come in all shapes and sizes. You kind of think of it as the Swiss Army knife, all these different tools that you have to be able to accomplish things in your life. So it is worthwhile to evaluate your values, your skills, and your experience. And this little question is just really to write down some stuff that you're highly skilled or experienced at doing. Hey there, it's Annie. I just wanted to pop by real quick and ask you a couple things. Have you been feeling stuck somewhere in your life? Are you asking yourself, how did I end up in this body, this situation, or this way of thinking? When the heck did I lose control? I want you to understand, first of all, that you are not alone. I've been there too, and through so many types of challenges in my life. And at times I felt really powerless and a little bit lost, or maybe a lot lost. But I found my way back, and I feel like I'm better than ever. And now I want to help you to find your way too. I want you to get through that process easier and faster than I did. So what I have to offer you today is the opportunity to have a private lifestyle strategy session with me so that you can gain some clarity and confidence to move from stuck to free in your own life. I promise at the end of our 30 minutes together, you'll have additional insights and understanding about how to move through your stuck places and into the unapologetically confident life that God designed for you to live. Now, I want you to make sure that you grab your spot soon because they're super limited and they're filling up quickly. I'm looking forward to speaking with you really soon. The next part is determining your direction. Skipping back to F, you formed your dream, and in between, you're doing a little bit of this sort of prep work. You're thinking about packing the car to go on a trip. And just like as you would go on a trip, most people, when they go on a trip, don't get in the car without knowing which direction they're going. So if I'm driving to Montana, I'm not just going to get in the car and go the direction of the least amount of traffic, or I'm going to roll the dice, or I'm going to eeny, meeny, miny, moe it when it comes time to go on one freeway or the other. I'm going to determine my end point, which is forming your dream, right? Having your dream. Where do you want to end up? And then you have to sort of map it out. Well, what's it going to take to get there? What's one direction that I can go? I can go through, these states. I can take this interstate and get there. It's going to take me longer. I'm going to encounter that, all of those things. So think of it like planning a trip. Determine your direction and, really getting ready for that. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to go, and what's the path you're going to take? And then the O is the next part where you're going to get into more details about organizing your plan. Using the analogy of taking a trip, for most of us, we're going to map it out. If it's a multi-day trip, we're going to figure out where we're going to stay along the way, maybe even make some reservations. Especially if we have a family or we need multiple rooms or our dog is traveling with us, it's probably wise to have some milestones along the way. I want to get this far. I want to drive this many hours. I want to get to this city. I want to get to this milestone by this time. And then you have to break that down into, okay, so that means we're going to have to leave at this time. So then we're going to have to pack the car the night before. We're going to pack the coolers the night before. We're going to get everybody up, blah, blah, blah. All the little ticky-tacky things. If you're writing a book and you have a due date that it's going to be published, you have to know when the publisher needs it, when they need your final everything, when the editing and the layout and the interior design, when everything needs to be done in order to get finished by your due date. Back that up. Now you have to figure out how much writing you have left, how much writing, when you're going to do it, how long it's going to take you. And always add extra time, like building a house, because sometimes you don't feel creative when you're writing a book. Just let me tell you that. So just identify the critical steps and the resources that you need for arriving at your destination, for taking that trip towards your destination, because that is going to help you a lot to have those milestones, because then you'll know that you're on track. And also, we know that things don't happen overnight. If you want to be the kind of person that creates a platform of influence online, offline, everywhere in the world, you can't wake up on Monday morning and expect by Monday night that you are going to be Tony Robbins, or you're going to be Joyce Meyer, or you're going to be anybody who has a really high profile. You're going to have to take regular steps and try some things. And that's part of the plan, is you've got to have milestones. And remember that even taking the smallest steps towards that next milestone, it counts towards progress. It is progress. And there are some times when you are going to have to stay overnight at a city that you didn't plan to stay at because you had a flat tire or you had car trouble, which in people terms is you got sick, something happened in your family, you hit a road bump, you have to take a little bit extra time. But that's okay, because you can keep the destination, you can pick up the map again, and you can continue on the path when you've resolved whatever it was that was keeping you from traveling. So I like the car analogy, I like the trip analogy, because it does give a bit of a visual about a goal being a trip. The last letter in all of this is M. And this one is pretty darn obvious, but it is one that people literally get hung up on constantly. And this is to actually move and take action. So all the steps before are wonderful information, and they are really great for getting clarity and building your confidence and seeing the vision and understanding where you're going and how long it might take you and what you have to do and what you have to pack and all of those things. But none of that matters unless you decide to move and you start moving and taking some of that action. The scariest moment, I think, for mostly anybody, especially when they're going into newer territory or scary territory, is that whole feeling of fear or resistance that comes right before we're going to do something that we feel like is really exciting, really worthwhile, and something you want a lot. And Steven Pressfield writes a lot of books. He wrote this book called The War of Art. And he wrote several other ones. But it's all about this idea about resistance. And resistance is this force in every human being that wants to keep us from moving forward. Psychological terms, they talk about the ego. The ego's whole job is to keep you safe. But it's kind of a twisted thing because it comes off as instilling fear in you. Well, of course, it wants to keep you safe and keep you from moving forward. So we all get that feeling at some point of right before we're about to make a really big decision and step into it, or really step into something big and wonderful and exciting. It's always scary. And it's scary because it's new. It's scary because it's unproven. It's scary because you might encounter resistance. And resistance can come in the way of, like I talked about before, the dream stealers, the people who are in your family, who are in your closest circle, who are well-meaning and love you. But they don't want to see you change because that makes them uncomfortable. They don't want to see you grow because that might threaten your current relationship and it might change things. And so what we have to realize is that any time that we are toes on the starting line and we are ready to step over and do that thing and move in the direction of that thing, we are going to meet up with resistance. Like our shoes are in cement on the starting line and the gun went off and we can't move. the cure, the answer is very simple. You have to move anyway. You have to take a single step. You have to keep your eyes forward. And for my believing friends out there, that's getting out of the boat and walking on water. As long as you're focused on Jesus, you can walk on water. The minute you look away or look around and consider your circumstances, you're going to sink. And you're not going to be walking on water. You're going to be very wet and sorry. So however you want to interpret that, eyes on your prize, eyes on the prize, you need to be focused on that in order to overcome resistance, because it's 100% guaranteed resistance will come for you. For sure, for sure. It does for everybody, especially when we want to do something new we haven't done before. And interpreting resistance as being, oh, this means I shouldn't do it because I'm feeling this way. Our feelings are very seldom truth. And unfortunately, as humans, we get in this mode where we interpret our feelings as meaningful in terms of like concrete, actual, real things that are happening. But they're just a reaction. They're a reaction to a belief that we have or a perception that we have. They may or may not, and seldom are, actual truth. And that's where you have to dig down and understand, is this really a scary thing? Am I really in danger? Really, that's the question. Am I really in danger by taking this step? I'm in danger of being criticized. I'm in danger of failing. I'm in danger of losing money that I invested in whatever I had to do to make this happen. Those are the dangers usually. I mean, obviously, if you're riding a motorcycle at top speed down a freeway without a helmet and being stupid, that's a worthwhile risk to listen to. That's when resistance is a good thing to listen to, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about dreams and desires and goals that you see yourself doing, but you haven't yet brought to full fruition in your life. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. And that is when you will encounter resistance. It's the things you really want that will change you and make you into something different on the inside, on the outside, anywhere, all of it. That's when you will encounter resistance. But that's why moving and taking the action that you've organized in your plan, that you've written about in your dream, you're walking towards that. And here's the thing, if your dream is not compelling enough, if you're just going through the motions of writing down, well, I want to have this and I want to have that and I want to blah, 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 and you don't feel anything about it, it's not your dream. That's where you're getting caught up in the shoulds. That's where you're not really allowing yourself to get into that really, really quiet place of what is it that I really want with and for my life. If I can look back at my life, what will I wish that I would have done or had or served or created or spent time doing? Those are the things that matter, but those are the things that you're always going to get challenged to do. So I hope that you've enjoyed this special training. It is the 7-step freedom formula. And like I said, the show notes will be on the show page, boldbravesassshow.com, and look for this title, which will be the 7 steps to creating a life you love on purpose. And the book and all the links to everything that I mentioned on here will be on the show notes. And share this with your friends and subscribe so that you never miss a show. I don't have to keep reminding you, go download the show. No, subscribe and you'll always have the latest episode sitting right there in your iTunes or your Google Play or Stitcher. Those are the places that they are. And I'd love to hear from you. So if you go over to the show notes, there's actually places to leave comments and questions, and I always take the time to answer those. So if you leave me a message, I will definitely get back to you. So this is Annie Berryhill. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Bold, Brave, and Sassy Show. I really, really want to empower you and give you the tools you need to live the unapologetically confident life that God designed for you. And we're just going to keep on working on things that are getting in your way and moving them out of the way and giving you tips and tools and tricks and all the inside information to make that possible for your life. Until next time, thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.